The 180 is a fundamental trick on the BMX bike and ends up being a crucial building block for future tricks and lines. The steps in this tutorial are simple to understand and even easier to apply, which means we're going to get you spinning in no time. Welcome back to Joy of Bike. I'm Mike.
And I'm Chase, and together we're going to help you get started with the 180.
Let's go.
There are a few things that we need in order to learn the 180, and that is a bike, a helmet, a parking lot, and an understanding of how to bunny hop. So if you don't have that skill dialed in quite yet, check the video linked in the description below to get up to speed.
Now that we're ready to get started, let's quickly cover a few misconceptions that are often associated with this skill. You don't need a bank or a ramp to learn how to 180. In fact, we're opting into learning this skill on the flat ground. Knowing how to fakie is not a requirement. In fact, this is a great time to start learning how to do it. We want to avoid kicking the bike out or fishtailing to initiate or finish the rotation. Our body should always be telling the bike where to go, not the other way around.
Now that we've gotten the common misconceptions out of the way, what are we going to cover in this video? We're going to break it down into 3 parts: the spin, the commitment, and the practice.
Practice can be one of the most important parts to learning the 180. However, it can be pretty exhausting. But thankfully for you, you can fuel your fun with today's video sponsor, Traction Coffee. And all you have to do is cruise down to the episode description down below or scan the QR code on the screen to save 30% on your first order.
In your world, fun is the currency of effort. Enjoy pure, all-natural fuel to keep you moving forward, no matter the task. For the doers, the fun havers, the all-around go-getters, fuel your fun with Traction Coffee.
Hopefully you've watched our how to bunny hop video by now, since that is a fundamental skill for the 180. If you have, this next part might look familiar to you. Here's a great exercise that you can do right alongside me. Let's set the bike down and revisit that plyometric jump that set the foundation for the bunny hop. We'll crouch down and explode up into a jump. This is the same core movement that gets us lift in that bunny hop. Now let's introduce some spin into this jump so we can identify a few key things that'll help us with the rotation. For this next plyometric jump, spin 180 degrees by leading that rotation with your head and your shoulders. From the moment we start putting energy into the ground, rotate your head. And notice how quickly your head completes that 180 degree rotation and how the rest of your body follows suit. Oftentimes, beginners learning how to 180 forget to lead that rotation with their head. And this causes unnecessary challenges in this plyometric jump as well. Try that same 180 degree rotation, but keep your head looking straight the entire time. Notice how much harder that feels. All right, let's grab our bike and talk about how this translates to 2 wheels. But before we start making some attempts, let's talk about some technicalities that are good to acknowledge. First off, which way do you spin? Well, the general rule of thumb is to spin towards your back foot. This is because our stance generally dictates which way feels easier for us to spin. However, there are goofy-footed riders that would prefer to spin towards their front foot. So if that feels more comfortable for you, then lean into that. There's nothing wrong with it. And second, how fast should we go? A little faster than a walking pace should be fine. Slow enough that you can put your foot down without any consequences, but fast enough that you can maintain some forward momentum. Ride along at that walking pace and crouch into the same loaded position as for the bunny hop. As we initiate the bunny hop, we'll start our rotation by looking over our shoulder and aiming to spot our rear axle. Now the rear axle is a pretty specific goal to be looking for, right? But there's pretty good reason for it. Looking at that rear axle will help drop the shoulder and keep the bike level while we're in the air. This sets us up for really good future success as we progress into bigger spin tricks like a 360 or a 540. If you're struggling to get off the ground, remember the fundamentals of the bunny hop. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. If you're struggling to get that rotation around, remember our off-bike demonstration. The bike will follow wherever the head and shoulders go. Filming yourself can also be a useful tool in this process. Sometimes we think we're doing something, but once we watch ourselves, we realize how passive we are riding. It happens to us all the time. So set up your phone and film a few clips to make sure you're looking where you think you're looking. Here's an important note on timing. We want to look over our shoulder to initiate that rotation at the same time as we are applying energy into the ground to initiate the bunny hop. Doing so will result in a natural carve that kickstarts that rotation. It also gives us enough time to level the bike out in the middle of that spin, which brings us to part 2.
Now that we've begun to spin, this is the perfect time to check in on how we're starting to execute that rotation. There are 2 ways that we're going to do this. One is through a forced carve and the other is through a natural carve. Now, a lot of 180 tutorials talk about the carve, but they're not necessarily differentiating the 2. So let's break it down. What exactly is a forced carve? Well, this is when we're carving into the spin with the bike, which means that our bike is leading our body. This ultimately results in having far less control over our spins. In contrast, a natural carve is a byproduct of the correct form that Chase just discussed. We're allowing our body to lead the bike around, which results in far more control over our spin. In this side-by-side example, you're going to be able to see the differences between the forced carve and the natural carve. In the natural carve, what you're going to notice is that it's going to be a far more predictable, consistent, and safe spin because we have control over the bike. In my experience with teaching riders how to 180, I often see them getting stuck mid-spin and under-rotating. But why? It's simple, really. They're not fully committing. So how do we fix that? As we begin incorporating a spin into our bunny hop, it's not uncommon for us to forget to start tucking the bike up to us the same way we would in just a standard bunny hop. Not bringing the bike to us will result in either the back tire hanging up on the ground or just stalling our spin. To prevent this from happening, we want to fully commit to the bunny hop portion of this 180. To do this, we essentially want to level the bike or bring it up to us around the 90-degree mark of our spin. When executing this correctly, it instantly gives us better clearance and helps speed up our spin, which makes this a key motion to a clean and controlled 180. Now that we're correctly initiating our spin and tucking the bike to us, we need to begin preparing for our landing. To do this, we need to re-extend our legs from the tuck position as we pass by that 90-degree mark and start to drop from the peak of our hop. While doing this, we want to aim to be as central and balanced on the bike as possible. As we land on the ground, the goal is to have the majority of our weight over the bottom bracket going through our feet as we begin to go fakie. Our ideal landing position is both tires making contact with the ground at the same time or the back tire landing slightly before the front. This will help you maintain balance and control over the bike as you make contact with the ground. It's at this point that you're also going to want to absorb the impact by bending your elbows and knees to avoid sliding out or losing control as you enter your fakie. Now that we're riding backward in a fakie, we want our body position to stay central over the bottom bracket. This will help us maintain control over the bike as we're pedaling backwards. To exit our fakie, we're going to want to offset our weight to the opposite side of our spin and use pedal pressure as we pivot out. To make this look as seamless as possible, we're going to want to pivot out the same way we spun the 180 in. Keep in mind, this portion of the 180 is going to take quite a bit of patience and practice to get right. As you're doing this, put an emphasis on trying to make it all one swift and smooth motion. If you're struggling with leveling the bike out in the spin, revisit the bunny hop just by itself. Do a few reps and then start reincorporating the spin. Landing with our pedals level and anticipating the need to start riding backwards is going to greatly help us exit the fakie. If we over-anticipate this and land with our pedals perpendicular to the ground, this is going to result in us being out of balance. If you're consistently getting the spin around but still struggling with the fakie, don't worry. You can practice that bit independently by using a curb or a wall. We have a full video on how to do just that, linked in the episode description down below. And lastly, relax. Being tense is going to make this trick infinitely harder to land. Remember, smooth, clean motion is going to lead to the best 180 possible.
Now, the reason we start so many of our tutorials in a parking lot is because we believe it's the best place to learn a new skill, and the 180 is no different. The parking lot is low consequence and there's no external input affecting how you or the bike will react. So once you start getting comfortable with 180s there, you can bring them out to your skate park and start learning them on something like a small bank. The fundamentals will be the same, though there will be some speed and angle adjustments depending on the obstacle you're interacting with. Now, a couple things to keep in mind as you're practicing. The first one is consistency. Just keep practicing that motion because developing that muscle memory through the attempts will help improve your spins over time. The next is control. Focus on controlling that speed and balance, which are the keys to a smooth 180. And like we said at the beginning of this video, practice is the secret sauce to learning these 180s. So give yourself grace, be patient, and enjoy the process because it will never stop. In fact, I think I could use a little bit of 180 practice myself, so I think that means it's time for the joyride.
That was an absolute blast, and thank you for riding along with us. Now it's your turn. Comment down below and let us know how your 180s are coming along, if there's any other BMX skills you're really wanting to learn, and what the next skill is you think we should cover here on the channel. Our goal here on the channel is to help you unlock that ultimate joyride. So I hope it goes without saying, if you're getting stuck somewhere along in your 180 journey, feel free to shoot either Chase or I a message on Instagram so we can help provide you some feedback to unlock that joyride. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, cruise down and hit that like button so others like you can see it as well. If it helped you out, share it with a friend. And if you want to see more content just like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. Thanks for riding with us, yo. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, there's a storm coming, so we gotta go. But before we do, we have two other tutorials that are very complementary to this skill, how to fakie and how to air. So click on one of those because we would love to see you over there. Until next time, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you on the next joyride.